I'm Max Verstappen. I race because I think it's just great to be on the limit of what you can do in a racing car. I'm from Holland and I live in Monaco.
There's a version of Max Verstappen that the cameras never show you. Not the one in the car, the one who wakes up somewhere very small, very quiet, and very deliberately chosen. A place he could leave for anywhere on Earth and doesn't. He earns a reported $65 million a year, maybe more. He is, by most measures, the best driver of his generation. A man with that money and that fame could buy almost anything. An English country estate, a compound in the hills above Los Angeles, a private island. What he actually has is an apartment, around 180 square meters of it, on a strip of reclaimed land the size of a few city blocks, in a country you could walk across in under an hour. And the interesting thing isn't that he lives in Monaco. Half the grid lives in Monaco. The interesting thing is what he's turned that apartment into, and why a man who could own a palace chose instead to build something much closer to a bunker. If you want to understand how Verstappen actually lives, and why almost every detail of it is engineered, quietly, around a single obsession, stay with this and get subscribed, because the truth of that apartment says more about how he wins than any lap time ever could. Start with the money, because in Monaco, the money behaves strangely. Property here runs to around 55,000 euros per square meter, among the most expensive dirt on the planet. So the sums that would build a mansion almost anywhere else buy something surprisingly contained here. Verstappen's home, reportedly valued somewhere around $16 million, isn't a sprawling statement of wealth. It's a modest footprint by billionaire standards, which raises the first quiet question about the man. If he wanted space, spectacle, a house you could get lost in, he could have it in 100 other places. He chose the one where his money buys the least room and the most of something else. He's doubled down on that choice too, quietly, in a way that tells you it wasn't an accident. Monaco recently did something it almost never does. It made more of itself, reclaiming a new stretch of land from the sea to build an ultra-exclusive district called Mariterra, anchored by a Renzo Piano-designed building where prices are reported to start in the tens of millions of euros. It's the most insulated address the Principality has ever produced. Private access, sealed floors, security woven into the architecture itself, and Verstappen is among those reported to have moved into it. Given the pick of a brand new fortress, built to the exact specification of people who never want to be reached, he took it. The pattern isn't wealth for its own sake, it's a man repeatedly choosing the most controlled environment available to him. Verstappen has told us what that something else is, in his own words, and it's worth hearing exactly how he put it. Asked why Monaco rather than Amsterdam, he didn't talk about yachts or weather or the casino. He said simply that there he can be more himself, that he doesn't like being recognized all the time. That's the whole thesis of the place, stated plainly by the man himself. He didn't move to Monaco to be seen, he moved there to disappear. To understand why that matters so much to him specifically, you have to understand what he's escaping. In the Netherlands, Verstappen isn't merely famous, he's a national event. An entire color, orange, has become shorthand for the armies of fans who follow him across borders. He cannot move through a Dutch city as a person. He moves through it as a phenomenon. Multiply that by global recognition, and ordinary life, a coffee, a run, a walk with his family, becomes something he has to negotiate rather than simply have. Monaco is one of the few places on Earth engineered to hand that back to him, which is why what he does inside those walls matters so much, because it's not what you'd expect from a man with his bank balance. Walk into the home of most people at his level of wealth, and the room is built around a status object, a wall of art, a car collection, something to be admired. Walk into Verstappen's, by every account of it, and the thing that dominates the space isn't a trophy or a painting, it's a simulator. A professional-grade sim racing rig, reportedly worth in the region of £26,000, built not for a hobby, but for something closer to a second job. This is the detail that reframes everything else about the apartment, because Formula One, by rule, starves its drivers of practice. The FIA tightly restricts time in the official team simulators, and real track testing is cut to a handful of days a year. A driver who wants more, who is wired to need more, has almost nowhere to get it, unless he builds somewhere himself. Make no mistake, this isn't a soft, comfortable version of the real thing. The serious rigs replicate the punishment of the actual car, a steering base that fights back with something close to the real torque of a Formula One wheel, brake pedals that don't respond to a nudge but demand a genuine, straining shove, screens wrapped close enough to strip away peripheral vision the way a cockpit does. It's built to hurt in the same places the car hurts. That's the point. He isn't playing at driving. He's rehearsing the exact physical and mental load of it on the nights when the sport's rules say he's supposed to be resting. That's what the rig in the living room really is, not a toy. A private practice facility, sitting inside a jurisdiction where nobody's counting his hours. When rivals are at fashion shows or sponsored dinners, Verstappen has spent his off weekends logging thousands of virtual miles, racing at the sharp end of the sim racing world with his own competitive outfit, not casually, but at a level that would embarrass most professionals in the discipline. The man does his day job at the highest level in the world, then goes home and does a version of it again, for fun, against the clock, alone. Sit with what that says about him. This isn't the lifestyle of someone chasing luxury. It's the lifestyle of someone who finds it genuinely hard to stop. The apartment isn't built for comfort. It's built to remove every obstacle between him and the one thing he actually wants to be doing. The location does the same job as the rig, just at a larger scale. Fontvieille, the district he settled in, is the quiet one, the reclaimed land corner away from the casino crowds and the tourist crush. And its most valuable feature has nothing to do with the view. It sits right next to Monaco's heliport. When the rest of the principality is gridlocked with supercars in the summer, Verstappen doesn't sit in it. A short walk from his building, a helicopter lifts off, and roughly 7 minutes later, he's on the tarmac at Nice. The same trip that takes half an hour by road collapsed into almost nothing. From there, a private flight to a factory or a circuit, he has arranged the geography of his own life so that the friction most people accept as unavoidable simply isn't there for him. None of this is cheap, and here's where the pieces connect into something deliberate. Monaco takes no income tax at all. No tax on income, on wealth, on capital gains. But the deal comes with a condition most people forget. To hold that status, you have to genuinely live there, at least 183 days a year, and prove it. This isn't a flag of convenience planted on a spreadsheet. It's a real commitment to physically being in that small, quiet place for more than half of every year, which, for a man whose calendar is already a blur of continents, means Monaco isn't an escape he visits. It's the fixed center he keeps returning to. On a salary the size of his, living there instead of Britain reportedly saves him somewhere around $30 million a year, a figure that, across the length of his contract, runs past $100 million. That isn't just money kept, it's money redirected, the savings that make a private jet, a permanent state of readiness, a life with the edges sanded off, into an ordinary running cost rather than an extravagance. The tax haven doesn't just make him richer, it funds the machine that keeps him sharp. Stretch that logic across a full season, and you start to see the shape of the whole design. 24 races now, across continents and time zones, a calendar built to grind a body down. Jet lag, delays, the low constant tax of commercial travel, the things that quietly erode reaction time by fractions a driver can't afford to lose. Verstappen has engineered almost all of it out. He controls when he leaves, who's with him, the temperature of the cabin, the hour he lands. Where others arrive at a track already frayed, he arrives, having protected the one resource none of them can buy more of, a nervous system that isn't already tired. Which brings the whole thing back to the strangest feature of the place, the one hiding in plain sight, the privacy. And in Monaco, privacy isn't a mood, it's enforced. The Principality is one of the most heavily watched, tightly secured patches of ground in the world. Dense with cameras, thick with police, and notoriously strict about photographers. Harassing a resident is a fast way to find yourself unwelcome in the country. For most people, that's an abstraction. For one of the most recognizable faces on the planet, it's the difference between a normal morning and a siege. It means Verstappen can run the coast road at dawn without a crowd gathering, take a jet ski into the bay without a drone overhead, walk out of his own front door as a private citizen rather than a spectacle. The security that surrounds the wealthy of Monaco, for him, does something more specific. It gives him back the ability to be no one. And that's the quiet paradox this whole story circles. In a sport that runs on attention, sponsors, cameras, the endless performance of being a champion, the most dominant driver of the era, built his life to escape exactly that. Everything about the apartment, examined closely, points the same direction. The small footprint that keeps the world out, the rig that keeps the work in, the heliport that erases the friction, the tax structure that funds the whole apparatus, the wall of surveillance that buys him, of all things, solitude. It isn't a home in the way most people mean the word. It's an instrument tuned to a single note. So here's what lingers once you see it clearly. Most athletes build a life to enjoy what the winning brought them. Verstappen built one that seems designed to make sure the winning never stops. A fortress whose only real purpose is to protect the part of him that can't switch off. And the uncomfortable question underneath all of it is the one nobody around him quite says out loud. A man doesn't construct a life this sealed, this controlled, this engineered against every intrusion because he's comfortable. He builds it because something in him needs it that badly. So watch him this season, adrift of a title fight for once, and ask yourself what that apartment is really for. Is it the machine that keeps a champion at the top? Or the place a driver goes to hide from what it costs to be one? Tell me where you land in the comments.